Oh, this is fine. Power to the people! I just wanted to say that. That's why I wrote this whole speech. What I'm going to do, this is a speech on the pathway of persuasion, is walk through energy, power, and work in plain English terms, so hopefully that we all can understand it. And if there's something you don't understand, I would love you to raise your hand and say, I don't understand what you're saying. Because I want to have this speech be understandable at a pace and a flow in language and examples that are easy to understand. Talk about energy, power, and work. And I'm going to go through the concepts of energy, power, and work. And I'm also going to go through some historical aspects related to the development of energy, power, and work. And one of the concepts that I want to introduce is nuclear power, because we have a situation in the last 50 years where all of the nuclear plants that we have right now were designed pre-computer. And what I mean by pre-computer is they were designed in my era when I went to school, and we used a slide rule instead of a calculator because there were no electronic computers at that time. So if you think about that right now, all of the nuclear stations that we have in operation in the United States today are operating based on designs that are pre-computer. And it's relatively, is that a question, Victoria? Oh. It's relatively relatively comparable to Generation 2 nuclear facilities that we have right now. However, there are designs and there are plants that are Generation 3 that we do not have, and there is Gen 4, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on here. And there are going to be other generations as well, and I'll also talk about that. But what is energy, what is work, what is power, and what is work? We need to understand that first. Energy, that you can take all of those concepts and imagine a car. You can look at your car, and where's the energy in your car? The energy is in your gas tank. If you have an empty gas tank, you have no energy. You can do no work. So imagine that your work is to pick up bales of hay. You know, you stop every mile and you pick up a bale of hay. Let's just make it in very simple terms. So if you have no gasoline in your tank, then you have no energy. And you'll have no power, doesn't matter. You may have a 300 horsepower engine, but you have no power, you have no work, because you have no energy. Now, what is the equivalent of power in the car? Kind of already stated it. It's the engine. If you have, like Mike, a 700 horsepower F-350, then you have a lot of power, and you can pick up a lot of bales of hay. You can do a lot of work. If you got a 50 horsepower, then you probably have a go-kart, and you can't do a lot of work with that. So your energy is the size of your gas tank and the amount of juice or gasoline that you can put into it. The equivalent in an electric car would be the battery. And you still have a motor with an electric car. So the analogy still holds. You have energy, power, and what is the work that you are doing? The work is how far you can go, how many bales of hay you can pick up if you're picking up a bale of hay every mile. So if you have a car that can go 500 miles, that's how much work you've done, 500 miles. That's your work. Now let's consider that. Let me ask you a question. Can you create energy? You cannot create energy. You cannot create or destroy energy. Energy exists. You can transform it from one form to another. So for example, the gasoline, you are just transforming that energy. Now you've already transformed it from oil to gasoline, and you are going to transform it to doing movement, which is transforming it into kinetic energy. So you're going to transform it into movement and work, the gasoline, and then you'll put the exhaust fumes into the air. So you cannot create energy, and you cannot destroy energy. Energy is always the same. You can only convert it from one type of energy to another type of energy. And we want to convert it, whatever energy source we are using, we want to convert that to work, because that makes us productive. And it helps us get things done. We can have factories that make the clothes we wear, or the cars we drive, or the food we eat. We can have farm equipment that cultivates the land. And so the more energy, the more efficient that energy is, the better our tools can be to produce work. So let's talk about a couple of other ways we use energy and power. There are basically two ways. One is stationary. The other, or fixed, call it fixed. The other is transportation or movement. So a fixed is a factory. A fixed energy usage is your house, your office, your building. So what we do is we'll take energy at a source, or in Washington State, what's the major source in Washington State?
Hydro.
Hydro. So we take the energy of the water coming from the mountains going down, and the gravity and the weight of that, put it through a turbine, and we generate electricity. So we create that potential energy from gravity into electricity that we use. And that transports over fixed stationary lines to our factories, our homes, anything that doesn't move. Now the other form of energy that we use is the transportation or movement. So that could be your little scooter, that could be your car, could be a truck, could be a train, a boat, anything that moves. So everything that moves needs an energy source. Now what is that source of energy? Well, the source of energy is going to be a battery, or it's going to be oil. Are there any other ones that you can think of? Batteries?
Solar.
Why did you say battery?
Solar.
Solar on transportation?
Yeah.
Okay. Give an example, Art.
Yearly they have a solar challenge in Australia.
That's true. Yes.
To have a car go as far as it can.
That's right. Okay, so there are small cars that are conceptual that use solar energy, and they go downhill.
Hydrogen, isn't hydrogen?
Hydrogen is another one. There are hydrogen automobiles, and they are very promising. It's what you call clean energy. However, you're dealing with like a 10,000 pound per square inch fuel tank, and you're dealing with a lot of process and piping and components. Hydrogen probably will be a major source of energy to drive transportation or moving type vehicles for larger items like ships and trains at some time. In my personal opinion, I don't see it becoming, even though they have cars now that are wonderful, I don't see it. I see electricity or batteries being the way to go. So now let's talk about the two. So we got the stationary and the transportation. And let's talk about the transportation first, the moving car. In 1900, what was the most popular form of energy source for a car? It was, believe it or not, if you don't count the horse and buggy, the most common type of car was the electric car. The electric car was the most popular form of transportation. The negative to it was that it could not go very far. And you would have to either change out the battery or change the fluids in the battery, and there was no easy process. So it became extinct when the highways came into being and the combustion motor took over. Now, we went through 100 years, the electric car has always been there, but it has never competed against the combustion car up until 2007. A company called Tesla had a Roadster that they used as a concept to bring into the mainstream in 2010 or 2011, the Model S Tesla automobile. And at that point, one of my very first speeches in 2012 in Toastmasters, 7 years ago, I could see that the electric car had made the combustion automobile obsolete. And it's probably going to be another 10 or 12 years before that transition is complete. And it's really nothing to do with environmental concerns. It's just that the electric car on almost every level, safety, reliability, it'll be able to go 1 million miles. There are so many things, and performance, that it can do better than the combustion automobile. Now, there are people that certainly believe that, many people do, and I think in the next year or two you'll begin to see that the electric car is taking over, because most of the major automakers like Volkswagen, Mercedes, Hyundai, and British automakers, they're all coming out with competitors to Tesla that are bona fide. They're over 200 mile, 250 mile range, so they've cracked the range issue. And those cars will come out, and they will make the combustion automobile obsolete. So what we have is we have oil, coal producing plants, we have hydro, wind. Wind is an eyesore. Environmentalists will eventually want to take down windmills because they are not environmentally aesthetic. However, for the fixed, if we've solved the moving energy source with electric cars, what are we going to do with the fixed sources? And nuclear energy is the answer there. We have a gentleman by the name of Bill Gates who's willing to spend his own money to build a Generation 4 nuclear plant. Generation 4 nuclear plant will eat the fuel, will use the waste fuel of the Generation 2 nuclear facilities. It will produce no emissions that are bad, and it will be extremely efficient in the size to the amount of energy that it can produce. And that's just Generation 4. You can go past Generation 4. You have to get to Generation 3 and vet that and use it. You have to get to Generation 3 to get to Generation 4. Bill Gates is having trouble because of permitting. It'll take 10 years to permit. So the regulations right now intended to protect us from nuclear energy are now getting in the way of the future of nuclear energy. And the future, even beyond the fission type nuclear energy, Gen 4, Gen 5, whatever it is nuclear fusion. And then we will have perpetual amounts of clean energy in very small forms that will produce a lot of energy. And we'll be able to get rid of all these solar plants everywhere. That, you know, driving through Ellensburg and seeing these big solar farms, we'll be able to recoup that land and plant carrots and tomatoes or whatever.